Hello everyone, my name is Tommy and I'm with Boys and Girls Clubs of St. Lucie County. Welcome to an episode of our virtual club. Today, we're going to be doing something that is everyone's favorite, a science experiment. But we want to make sure before we start that you get permission from an adult or from someone in the home to do this experiment. Try and make sure that you're being safe with the materials and that you can use the materials. So last time in our science experiment, we learned about buoyancy. And buoyancy, that new science vocabulary word that we learned, is the ability of something to float. Okay? And we also learned about density. And that density is how close the molecules are in something. And that's something like a balloon, the density is low because the molecules are spread far apart. And something like a penny, the density is very high because the molecules are more compacted. What we didn't test last time is, what if we change the density of the liquid? So what if we made the liquid more dense? What would happen? Would that change? So today I have 2 eggs, I have 2 glasses of water, and I have some salt. That's what you're going to need for this experiment. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'm going to gently place an egg in a glass of water. As you can see, it sank right to the bottom. So that egg is on the bottom over there. Okay, and I'm going to take this egg, and this is just plain old water from the faucet. Put an egg in there too, and it sank to the bottom as well. So both of our eggs sank. So just so everyone knows, there's no trick eggs. This is just water from the tap. It's just normal water that we filled up. We didn't do anything to it, so both of the eggs went to the bottom. So you have to be careful when you put them in because you don't want them to break. But I have seen on a show that I was watching before, people were in the Dead Sea, and it's a sea in Israel, and people can go in there and they just float. And I said, I wonder why that happened. It's because there's so much salt. So I wanted to test out if we can make our own little ocean in one of these glasses and see if that helps an egg to float. Before we go on, I want to make sure that I'm recording that the egg, it sank. Because remember what good scientists do. They make a hypothesis, they test their hypothesis, then they come to a conclusion based on the information that they collect. So the egg sank with just plain water. Great. So now, we're going to try, that means that the egg must be more dense, or that it was not buoyant in this water. Let's see if we try to make the water more dense than the egg, and we'll see if it floats. So I just have normal salt. I'm going to put a good amount in. I'll just use a pencil to stir it up. And we're going to put the egg in here and see if this time it's with salt. So we added salt to the water to see if we can make the water more dense than the egg and see if the egg is buoyant in the salt water. And it's hard to see, but if you look from the top, the little top of the egg is peeking out of the top there. So it's floating. It's not touching the bottom anymore. I'm going to add more salt to this one. And make sure you get permission before using these materials at home, okay? Don't just do this on your own. Make sure you have an adult's permission and help while doing the experiment. I added some salt to this one too. I'm going to gently put the egg in. And it's floating. And you can add more salt. Here, let's take this one out. We're going to add even more salt to this one. Make the molecules, make the water more dense. And see if it will float better. Because if you just put a little bit of salt, it still might sink, because it still might not be as dense as the egg. Floating pretty good now. So this one is kind of in the middle. So that must mean that I put less salt in this glass than that one. So I'm going to record that. That the cup with a lot of salt, the egg floated to the top, floated with a lot of salt, and the egg where there was just a little bit of salt, it's not touching the bottom, but it's not quite as high floating as the other egg. So that must mean the amount of salt and the amount of density of the water does have an influence on whether the egg floats or not. And you can try this with other things too. Let's see if the water is dense enough to make a penny float. So we added salt water. Does that mean that everything will float in there now? Let's see. It still sank right to the bottom. So that must mean even though we added salt to the water, it doesn't make everything float because the penny is still more dense than the salt water. So it's still not buoyant in this mixture, but the egg was. Once again, try it with your own things around the house. See if you can make something float in salt water but not regular water. And if you do find something cool, share it below. Thank you guys for tuning in to our science channel today and learning a little bit about buoyancy and density. We'll see you next time.